All right. All right.
All right.
So I think we are all set. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Hey, it's a good Friday.
Good Friday.
It's a good
Glad to
Friday.
be here, man.
It's always a good Friday.
Makes it even better.
You know,
Yeah. So I'm Steve of the ALOT Podcast, and we have Ahmad. What's up? Peace.
I'm Javen Palooza.
How's it going?
Hey,
How are you,
you
sir?
got it, man.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I mean, all things considered, it can't be worse, right?
Quarantine. How's quarantine been treating you?
It's been okay. I mean, it's been so long right now. It's kind of like quarantine is the new way of life. So, even if you didn't like it in the beginning, you've adjusted, and so we're kind of here, right?
Yeah. It's the new normal. It definitely is. Man, me asking, where about the country are you?
We're in New York, so our offices are in New York. So we got hit pretty hard, at least initially, and now we're just kind of coming back together.
Okay. And you guys still can put out work, and how's it affected your team? You guys you guys don't really need to be around each other to put out content, right?
No. I mean, about a year ago, we decided to go mostly remote. So we had people coming to the offices a couple of times a week. So when this happened, we were already kind of set up for it. So it didn't really affect us all that much.
Okay. Just for the people that's listening, pronounce your last name. I don't want to butcher it. So I mean, we have the founder of MTO.
How many times do you actually hear that when you come on? You know what I'm saying? Like, hey.
I heard it all my life, so it's there's nothing new about this. But my last name is Mwanga Gahunga. So my name is Fred Mwanga Gahunga.
I'm gonna call you Fred M. Is that cool?
That's fine.
All right, Fred. So I guess to get started, I guess most people want to know. I did a little research and saw that you were a lawyer. You started a blog. How did you want to speak to that? How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I went to school like a lot of people, and I kind of thought I was going to go the corporate route, and I was doing it, and it was working for me for a while. I was on Wall Street working as a lawyer, but I always knew I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that I could call my own, something that I felt a connection to. And the law was kind of this esoteric thing, especially if you're doing corporate law. And I wanted to kind of access things that interested me. And so, African-American culture, hip hop, that kind of stuff, that interested me. And so when I had the opportunity to start a blog and kind of leave that part of my life, the corporate life behind, I took it, and here I am 16 years later.
Well, you say you had that opportunity to start a blog. What exactly is that opportunity for younger people that might want to venture
Right.
off?
So what I've been doing, I went to business school, and I was always thought of myself as an entrepreneur. So I was always just looking for trends and looking for new changes to kind of catch on before everyone else did. So I started a business before media takeout, and the business, my prior business, which was a laundry service, I was investing advertising dollars into blogs. So I was able to see the growth of the blog world before I think the majority of other people did. So when I eventually sold that laundry business and I was looking to start a new business, I knew that the blog world was growing incredibly fast in terms of readership, in terms of revenues. And so, when I was looking to start a business, I started a blog, and now it seemed pretty obvious. I think, there've been tons of really successful blogs like ours, and we've shown, an entire world of people that starting a blog could be a great business opportunity. But back when I started it, no one thought it was a good opportunity. No one thought it was a good business. Even the people that were blogging didn't think it was a good business. The people, my friends didn't think it was a good business. I was just able to see it. I was able to kind of extrapolate on where it was going to go and get in early.
And so that was based basically on the ad revenues that it generated because of the ads? So that's all. So the content was secondary. The ad revenue is what drove you to figure it out?
Well, I mean, ad revenue is kind of one side of the business, but then it's, the content is what drives the audience, and audience is what drives revenue. So, I mean, they're all connected together. But in essence, I mean, remember what drew me to it in large part was this is an area, the content is what I was interested in. Obviously the revenue is something I'm interested in too, but, being around African-American content, especially if you're from me, right? Like coming from, before that I was in the laundry business, and before that I was doing kind of corporate M&A stuff. And I get to move from that into, talking about hip hop, meeting these people, You know, it's a totally different world. It's a world that was exciting to me, and a world that I wanted to be a part of.
You see, that's what I wanted to ask you. How does a corporate lawyer go into
Hip-hop
where we're at
content.
now?
Yeah,
What, if you don't ask me,
You were in your office, corporate law.
it was like, who did?
Before you had MTO, what blog were you checking out that you were like, I can do better than this?
You know, at the time there weren't really blogs out there. There were a couple of websites, but All Hip Hop was a big website at the time, and I loved that. There was another one called SOHH, and there were a couple of other smaller ones. But those are the ones. I mean, I would religiously go on them. I'd see what was going on. The Source was, I mean, it was a little bit earlier than that, but the Source magazine, and then eventually Source.com. Those were things. Vibe.com. So that's what I was interested in anyway, right? And when you're a Black person, even if you're in corporate America, you're kind of living these two worlds anyway, right? Like you're living Fred, the regular Black person in life, and then you're living Fred, the corporate Black person.
Right. Got it. And you, were you born here, or did you move here when you were younger?
Yeah. I was born in Washington, D.C. I lived all my life in New York and grew up in Queens, in Hollis, Queens. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm American, but I got this crazy long last name. So, you know.
First generation?
Yeah, first generation American. My parents are from Uganda.
What is that? What is that like?
It's different, right? Like, cause you come here, you know, I grew up in Queens, and a lot of my friends were first generation, but they weren't a lot of, at least then, there weren't a lot of Africans here. So majority of Black people maybe they were from the West Indies or possibly Haiti. So they had like a Jamaican community, and they had like a Trinidadian community, and they had like a Haitian community, at least in the part of Queens I was in. There really weren't that many Africans. And then even if they were there, you know, Africa's such a big continent, right? Like Uganda's a relatively small country, right? Like if you're from, the distance between like Uganda and Nigeria is probably the same distance as like Nigeria to Miami. You know, it's literally that far apart, right? You don't really think of that when you're, you know, there. You just think, oh, you're all African, but it's not really like that.
That's interesting you say that, because you don't think of distances and stuff like that when you get over here. What did your parents say when you said you were starting a hip hop blog from Uganda?
Oh man, they hated the idea. I mean, it wasn't just my parents, it was my friends, because all my friends were like, oh, Fred is, you know, this corporate lawyer on Wall Street, and now he's gonna do what? He's gonna be talking about Beyonce and Jay-Z and whatever. So they couldn't see it, right? Like they were looking after my best interest. They thought I was doing something foolish, right? But I was able to see, you know, that there was a real opportunity, that this was a growing industry, that there were a lot of people that were interested in this thing. And if we can execute properly, that there was kind of big rewards on the other side of it.
Have you changed your Ugandan parents' mind yet? Or are they still on the fence about you being a corporate lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would rather, but they've come along. They've come around.
That's good. I mean, you know, you hear it all the time about, like, you know, especially immigrants, you know, coming here, and they have so, you know, high hopes and dreams for their kids that when they find their way doing something, you know, they're not too happy with Dr. Lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about like the mindset of an immigrant in a lot of cases, and I mean, you know, I think it's a case for Black people in general, whether you're an immigrant or not. But so many of the immigrants, they like my parents, really literally sacrificed everything. They were like, I'm not interested. I'm not going to worry about my career anymore. I'm not going to worry about my future anymore. I'm going to put 100% of my effort into my kids' success, right? So they they didn't do this at, you know, at age like 50, or, I mean, these are people that are doing this at age 30, right? Like imagine at age 30, you basically say, I'm no longer interested whatsoever in any of my career goals or aspirations. I'm taking 100% of my effort and trying to put it into my kids. And that's what so many immigrant parents do. A lot of times to their detriment. I don't know that that's necessarily the right way to look at it. I mean, obviously now that I'm a parent, you know, I like to think that I'm taking care of my kids and giving them the best opportunities, but I think that, you know, I also have to take care of myself. But a lot of immigrant parents don't think that way. And so when they've given so much to their kids, or at least if they've seen that they've given so much to their kids, if they don't see it working out, it's almost like a huge waste, not just for the kid's life, but to their own life, right? Like they sacrifice so much to give these
the whole last name.
Yeah, it's like the whole, you know, you wasted 3 generations of, you know, of sacrifice. So
Yeah.
that's the mindset, I think, with a lot of immigrants. Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't necessarily think it's the right way to go, but it's there.
I saw that you had a kids app that you were speaking about a few years ago. How's that going? Did it take off, or where could we find it? Or
Yeah, well, you can't find it anywhere. It didn't take off. I guess the story is that.
okay.
So one thing, I mean, when you're kind of doing this and you're growing businesses, and I think a lot of times people see it and they're like, wow, Fred, you created this immediate takeout, and it's so good. How did you do it? But what I think a lot of people don't see is, you put out 9 or 10 ideas, and maybe one of them hit, right? And even with immediate takeout, you put out 9 or 10 different iterations, and one of them hits. And the idea is that what you're hoping is that the one that hits turns into such a big success that it overshadows the 9 that didn't make it, right? And so that's the way that I think entrepreneurship is. It's not the way that most people sell it, right? Most people sell it as, I woke up this day and I came up with this idea and it popped in my head, and then two great things happen, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm here, on the Forbes list, making a lot of money. It really isn't the way that things go, right? Like you go, you try something new, it doesn't work, and then you learn something. You learn something about yourself. You learn something about the idea. You learn something about the system, and you come out of it, win or lose, a better and stronger entrepreneur. And so that's the way that I've always kind of explored things. And so, I've invested in a ton of companies. I've started a ton of companies, even pre and post media takeout. Some of them have turned out incredibly well, and some of them, like the dating app, not the dating app, the children's app, just didn't work.
I said a dating app for kids. No wonder. I could have told you that was good.
That's an interesting idea. Let me think about that for a minute.
Let's not. Not in this one. What so what are you working on now, or what are you trying to get to take off now? Since the kids app wasn't it, what is it now? What's your new passion?
Yeah, I mean, we've been thinking about just the idea of social media, right? Like I guess there's kind of a thread that goes through all of these businesses, and it's a thread. It's a kind of a theory that I have, that I truly believe, and I think it will be life changing for Black people if it kind of comes to fruition. But I've been trying to figure out ways to execute it, and the theory goes something like this, right? Like there's, when you get a successful company, you find that you have a ton of opportunities, right? Like all different people come to you with all different ideas and different companies. You hear about things, people want to work with you, and you can just choose, right? Like it's almost like a kid in the candy store. You can do so many different things. And when you're in there, you get to see things from a different viewpoint. So I see things, I think, a little bit different than I think a lot of other sort of relatively junior entrepreneurs. And what I see is that you find that there are tons of people that can create this incredible technology out there, right? And they create this incredible technology, and then they go out there and they raise a bunch of money, and then they find that even though they have this great technology and the product that works really, really well, they can never get people to use it, because the people that create the technology are a certain kind of type, right? Like they're the people that'll sit down and code all day and make something look good. And then the people that can get users to use it is a completely different person. And so they end up with a ton of people that can create a product and very few people that know how to actually get users onto the product. And so my idea was always that, when you're talking about people, early adapters that use products, certainly products on the internet, and use and make products cool, that's Black people, right? So the idea is that if you could somehow figure out a way to get these really, really cool and interesting products and make them work in a way that's natural to Black people to use, you can kind of get the best of both worlds. And so I've always been kind of trying to figure out a way to kind of make that work. That was part of the children's app, I think, was a bit of a divergence from that, but I've tried it in at least 3 or 4 different ways. I've talked to some of the biggest companies in Silicon Valley. Usually I've talked to the Black people there, and I'll be like, hey, let's do this. And they'll be like, yeah, I think this is a great idea. There was one company, I don't want to name the company, but we came really close to kind of cracking that. And eventually they were like, their internal people just were, I guess, just uncomfortable about the idea of like turning their app into like an app with a lot of Black people on it. And that's what it came down to. it was to everyone's detriment because the company lost about 90% of its value. And I and the Black person who had worked at that company and has since gone on to another major company, believe that if they would have done that, that would have been a probably one of these, 20, 30, $40 billion companies out there right now. And it would have been with our help, right? So that's the overarching theme that I have, and kind of the different things I'm looking at is in that sphere.
Do you consistently see resistance like that?
Yeah, initially you don't, right? Because they look at the numbers and they're like, wow, this is great, right? Like this could work. We can actually take this thing and it could really launch. But then it turns into something else, right? Because you're then coming in there and you're talking to a group, largely technical people, but not all, who are like, okay, so we're all here, mostly or oftentimes no Black people there, or maybe just a one Black person that bought into it, and that's why they brought me to them. And they're like, well, do we really want to work for a company that just is filled with a Black audience that we don't really know, we don't really understand, we don't really get? And I think eventually that starts to set in, and eventually it gets them nervous. And then they usually are like, I don't know about it. So you really want to get, and so that was kind of one of the things, I say that, you learn things. One of the things that I learned is I think as the company gets kind of later stage or is more mature, I think it's less likely for them to buy into this theory that I have. But the earlier stage companies are very, very interested in the idea. We spoke to one company. There was one that we were working on up until a couple of weeks ago that if we would have kind of gotten that together, that would have been a gigantic deal. But it didn't work out, right? I can't say, I don't want to say any of the names of these companies. We're talking about many tens of billions of dollars a company that was willing to.
And it didn't work out because of the idea of the mass amount of Black people that would actually be?
No. With that one, it wasn't. That wasn't it. Okay. It was other things. I mean, to get these things to work, it's like I said, you try 10, 9 of them don't work. Not because I didn't try, not because, anyone did wrong. It just didn't work, right? So that one didn't work. But we have another one that's kind of in the pipeline, not as big, but it's an earlier stage company. And I think that has the kind of growth opportunity that I think is there. So that's what's kind of going on in my mind, other than obviously growing the traffic on Media Takeout.
Given the climate, do you think it'll be a shift in that?
Shift in what?
Just the mentality in the space where they'll say, oh, too many Black people. Do you see, because we see these corporate messages over the last couple of months. Do you think you'll actually see a shift in that mentality?
Well, yes and no. I think, and let me just tell you kind of how I saw it happen in real time, in real life with Media Takeout. So when I started Media Takeout and I was doing it and we were growing in traffic, initially everyone in entertainment news that was coming to me, and after I would go to places, I would meet people and people started to like me and they'd give me advice and they'd all tell me, do not run. Why are you running a blog that's only Black? It doesn't make any sense. The Black population is a relatively small or a population of the total entertainment market. What you should do is you should do entertainment news in general, and then maybe you do some Black people so you can get the Black people, but then you can get white people.
I was going to ask you, how do you? Well, go ahead. I was going to ask you why only Black gossip or whatever. But go ahead, speak to that.
So that was their idea, and like I said, these are people that weren't trying to harm me. They were actually trying to help me, and they thought they were giving me good advice. But the way I saw it was something completely different. I was like, well, look, there are 50 different places out there where you can get general entertainment content. If you can get one that is focused primarily on African-American content, goes in deep, understands it better, understands its audience better, then that you become the one place outside of the 50 that is actually the most trusted voice for African-American entertainment news. And so my idea was, okay, if I could be number one in this other place, then yes, I would take that. But I don't think I can. But what I can do is I can get a foothold in the African-American market, which I knew was a lot larger than a lot of these people giving me credit for. And I figured that if I can do that, I could rival, simply talking about African-American entertainment news, I could rival some of the bigger mainstream news. And that's exactly what happened. And so what I saw is, when we started, Our major competitors were Perez Hilton and TMZ and Entertainment Tonight and That's Extra. And at the time that we started, I can tell you, and you know, I'm friendly with the folks over at TMZ. I think they'll be out open and say it too, that TMZ, Extra, Perez Hilton, they talked about almost no African-American celebrities. At the time, it was about Britney Spears and Paris Hilton, and maybe Nicole Richie was the one Black celebrity that they and so what happened is they would talk about the white celebrities, and we would talk about the African-American celebrities. And you know, with internet ratings, everybody sees the ratings, right? It's like TV ratings. Everyone can see which sites are doing well and which sites aren't doing well. And our name was always close to the top of the list. And so what eventually started happening is the folks over at TMZ were like, wait a second, this site over here that is only talking about Black people is catching up to us. Maybe we need to start talking about Black people a little bit more. And then Extra was saying the same thing, and Entertainment Tonight was saying the same thing. And now if you look at TMZ, and you can go on TMZ today and look down and just count how many African-American celebrities stories that they're talking about, it's almost all of them, right? Like they've realized that talking about African-American celebrities and talking about African-American news is an incredibly popular market. And so they didn't do that. They didn't come to a realization. It wasn't that, you know, someone was protesting outside of the door and say, you need to cover more African-American celebrities. They didn't say, well, you know what, it's the right thing to do to talk about African-American celebrities. What they realized is an African-American company came up and started kicking their butt and forced them to do it. And that's the same concept that you can do in, I believe, in Silicon Valley. I think if you were able to come in there and you were able to prove this thing, like I said, this is just a theory of mine, that, you know, maybe there are plenty of people that don't believe it. I tend to. But I think that if you can actually prove it, show it in practice, then you wouldn't have to go over to Google and say, please hire Black people. Google would say, let's go get a whole bunch of Black people because we need to figure out how to do what Fred and those other guys did.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's a good theory. That's a good working theory.
Hey,
it's a theory.
Fred, tell me this though, for real, because this has been on my head a minute. How does a Black man with Ugandan parents become a tax attorney, switch that into a laundry service, and then go to where we're at now with media takeout? Wait a second. How did you find people to actually make that happen? I mean, were you in the hip hop scene, you know what I'm saying, in Queens or whatever?
Yeah, what made them want
build those type of relationships or whatever? And
what made them want to get their gossip from a Black man?
Like how? Because I understand how that works. You know what I'm saying? You need people to actually, you know what I'm saying, come back with the info. How did you build those type of relationships?
Well, I think, you know, the relationship, I mean, we've been around for 16 years. We have tons and tons and tons of relationships. But that's now. But when we started, how'd you do it? I didn't know anyone in the music industry. I didn't know anyone in entertainment. I didn't know anyone at all. But the part of the thing that we did is we were taking advantage of kind of a hole in the market. So at the time, there were plenty of African-American or urban radio stations, magazines. There were other websites out there that had way more money than us, had way more contact with people, way more everything. But they also, their basic fundamentally were relying on celebrities for content. So if you were a magazine, you needed a celebrity to show up on the cover. If you were, you know, BET, then you needed a celebrity to come on to 106 in Park. If you were a radio station, you needed the celebrities to come onto your radio station and do interviews. So they could never, their relationship with celebrities was always had to be a friendly relationship. They could never talk about gossip or anything going on behind the celebrity's back, because then a week later when they're saying, hey, come on and talk, you know, do the interview, the celebrity would say no, and that was their bottom line. So it was the problem at the time wasn't where to get the gossip. The gossip was there. If you just talk to anyone that worked at any of these radio stations or any of the TV stations, they knew the gossip, but there was no outlet for it, right? Because all of the traditional outlets, whether it was magazine, whether it was radio, or whether it was television, would not post it, would not publish it. So it was almost like there was all of this pent up gossip that maybe your friend, if you knew someone in the entertainment industry, told you about it, and you told someone that told you about it, but there was no place out there that was willing to kind of take the step and say, okay, I'm willing to not have a friendly relationship with all these celebrities. I don't need the celebrities to sell anything else. I'm willing to just kind of go into the gossip world. And so we did so at the time. Obviously, the world has changed right now, and I think, you know, celebrities have kind of loosened up to the idea of gossip. So it's a little bit different. But so at the time, you know, whereas, you know, you might look at it as saying, oh, you didn't know anyone in the entertainment, so that was actually like a barrier for you to enter. Me not knowing anyone in the entertainment industry was actually the only reason why I could start, right? Because if I did know anyone in the entertainment industry, I couldn't start it, because then that would have soured my relationship and ended my relationship.
So has any relationships actually soured since?
Yeah, relationships, you know, you guys are in the two. Sometimes the relationship is good, sometimes it's bad, then it gets good again, then it gets bad again, you know. So it's all up and down. I think at the end of the day, the one thing that I know is the number one most important thing to most celebrities is staying famous, and we make people famous. So, you know, we can never have a terrible relationship with anyone for very long.
How do you navigate the gossip and confirm it to be true or not? You just how do you know
how do you check your sources?
Yeah, how do you check your sources, and how do you know somebody's not just being vendetta, you know, to put something out, you know, because they got your ear?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, you do that, you figure that out over time, right? Like at the end of the day, what I try and impart on everyone that works here is we want to put out stuff that's true, right? And that's the way that you're looking at it, right? Not the stuff that's just particularly salacious or stuff that you think, you know, you can get away with saying. We try and put out the stuff that's true. And I think that the reason why that's so important is that over time, that's what your audience expects you to do. And so if that's your kind of guiding principle when you're going into it, then I think you're on the right track. But like I said, how do you figure out if someone's telling you the truth or not? You can talk to them a bunch of times, you can vet them, you can talk to a bunch of different people, you can see if you can confirm it in different ways. There's tons of ways to kind of get to kind of that point.
And you said you've been out 16 years or 17 years? How long?
We've been around for 16 years.
And that's congratulations.
No, definitely
that's
congratulations.
Great.
We had a button like clap, so I was clap for you.
What's your biggest regret in 16 years in MTO?
Probably the biggest regret is not figuring out a way to kind of pull off that deal that I told you about. Because that would have been, and like I said, it was not even for me or for the company, right? The company's been really successful, right? Like I'm doing fine. It really isn't even about me. It really is just about.
That was this year though, right?
No. That was probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right. It stuck with you, huh?
Yeah, because the thing is, it was there, right? Like there was almost no way that it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
And the thing about it is, it's like, if it would have worked, it would have totally changed. Not only, it would have changed Silicon Valley, it would have changed social media, it would have changed everything. And it just never happened, right? And it just never happened because people were just too scared to go over there.
Are you still working on that?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You still pressing that?
With someone else?
No,
or?
it's that was like, it was like a confluence of events that made it possible at that time. It's not possible now, even with the same company. It's, you know, it just can't happen. Not in that way. But I mean, the concept that I'm saying is kind of, I've been trying since then.
Can you elaborate a little more on how it would have changed all of social media? Like, I mean, just in a user way, or do you adding another component, or what would have been the?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much, because then you know, obviously this is going to go around, and then people are going to be like, oh,
moving right along.
Like I said. Yeah, like I said, the people that were involved, right? Like I'm still friendly with them, and I think they were good people. They were just too scared to kind of to go for it. But that's why I think, like, to now, you know, when you see everything that's changing in the world, and you see, you know, all these, you know, obviously with the acceptance of Black Lives Matter, which, you know, was just 2-3 months ago was almost unheard of or unthinkable. That I think now is the time that something like that. So if like that exact same confluence of events would have happened, and it would have happened now, I believe that they would have said yes. And it would have, the entire trajectory of the last 4 years of, you know, how we see social media would be completely different.
Do you think that's, you say if it happened now, it would be different? Do you think that would only be because of what's going on now? That would be more so.
Yeah, I think, you know, like before when you can talk about, you know, like I couldn't talk to them and say, hey, listen, you know, there's kind of your subconscious bias is not allowing you to see the opportunity that's there, right? Like that's a conversation that 4 years ago you just couldn't have with them. They would be like, what are you talking about? You're insulting me. Are you calling me a racist, right? Like that's the kind, you couldn't have that conversation then. Whereas now I think you can have that conversation. I think people would be more open to at least listen to it, right? And say, you know, think about it and say, is what this guy's saying true? Is my subconscious bias like blocking me from taking advantage of this real opportunity out here? Hey, I think I lost. I can't hear. I can't hear. I think it's mute.
This guy is not the.
Sorry, I'm not the most tech savvy.
It's my IT guy I hired.
Hey, you get what you pay for.
Yeah,
that's the case.
Yeah, so we can start wrapping up, but I wanted to ask you to your two questions. You said people were with the climate change and all that. Has anybody circled back to you and show regret about that project 2 or 3 years ago not going right?
No, I mean I'm friends with all of these people, right? So I didn't take it personally when it didn't happen.
Sure, it's business.
We just kind of went on, and like I said, we've had success. The black person that actually brought me into the company, he's gone on to a lot of success.
Okay.
And their companies. So no, the more we're aware. It's just that I think we all recognize that with the confluence of events, some really big things could happen.
Okay, and then my last question for me that I have is, you were saying that their concerns were that you only had you were only doing black entertainment, or only had the black audience, and you spoke to why you didn't want to do white gossip or whatever you want to call it. Why have you thought about acquiring some of your competition or some of the other people that you passed? Like buying some of them and just letting them continue to run that thing, and then you'll have that market share of that the venture capitalists think they want you to have? Have you thought about that?
It's interesting because we haven't tried to acquire non-African American sites. Okay. So I haven't done that, but we've approached a lot of the sort of traditional African American brands, and we've tried, right? And I think we've even shown some fairly aggressive offers. And all of them have just been like, no, we just kind of want to do it. We don't want to kind of consolidate, which I think if there was consolidation right now, that would actually be good. That would be good for the industry. I think it would be good for a lot of brands that I think are struggling right now. I think our brand is doing really well, but a lot of other brands aren't. And so we've approached a bunch of people looking to kind of consolidate. And I just haven't been successful on that too. So you guys love pointing out all the different things that I've been unsuccessful at right now.
No, we learned it, man. We learned it. I mean, I think
I've been successful at some stuff though. I promise you guys.
That's why you're here. Hey, you're here for your success.
Thank you.
And honestly, I think that theory you got is I think it just hasn't been successful for you yet. But I think you're putting it out there and people are applying it.
And it doesn't have to be me, right? Like this is going to happen, right? Like, and the reason why I'm so confident is not because I kind of thought about it and I was like, oh, hey, how can we do this? This is a theory that has been working in industries for decades, right? Like when you wanted to start a record label in the 90s or 2000s, what you did is you put a hip hop artist on it, and you got the hip hop artist hot. And then when you got the hip hop artist hot, the label was hot, and then you signed all the other white artists underneath it to kind of build out the record label. If If you wanted to start a TV network, you put a whole bunch of black TV shows on it, right? That's how Fox got started. That's how a bunch of other nations, CW, you put a whole bunch of black shows on there because black people will watch it. You get the audience, you get it hot, and then you transition over and you put a whole bunch of white people on it, and then you end up having a well-rounded station. So this concept that I'm saying is not foreign at all. In fact, it's exactly what you should be doing. And but for, like I said, the racial block that's preventing all of these white companies from doing it, they would do it. Because they've already done it in all these other nations.
I agree. I mean, like you said, like a record company, you always have the hit artists pay for all the other artists or all the other. So yeah, I mean, it's just like with your ideas. Your one MTO idea should be able to pay for all of your other, ideas, trial and error. But Ahmad had a question. He doesn't have a camera right now.
I know you're married. And I would be remiss. I wouldn't be able to go home if I didn't ask this question. What do you have to say to Black women who say that your site perpetuates negative stereotypes of them?
I think that there are part of the issue, I think, with us as Black people is we're like, we'll just, and I think there's a lot to criticize, right? Like there's so much negative imagery about us as Black people and Black women in particular. So I think when you see something, right, like you see an image out there or imagery that you don't like, I think you say, well, let's figure out a way to kind of stop this from being out there. But there's a cost to that. And it's a cost that I think a lot of people don't necessarily appreciate, which is if there is content out there that Black people actually enjoy seeing. And if you say, well, as a Black person, you shouldn't participate in that content, right? Like this content, I don't care if Black people like it, do not participate in it because you're a Black person. If we all did that, what would happen is all of the media companies would be owned by white people. Because white people would say, yes, Black people, you want this? We'll take it. And we've seen this happen, right? Like you've seen it happen with, let's say, BET. BET was the first Black television network that had tons of reality shows on it, right? Like they had Keisha Cole, they had College Hill, they had all these shows. They could have had every single and the total monopoly of all of the reality shows. Mm-hmm. But don't you know that Real Housewives of Atlanta was pitched under another name to BET? Do you know that Love and Hip Hop was pitched under another name to BET? Imagine if BET right now, which has nothing that anyone wants to watch. Black people are not watching anything. Imagine if they had the Real Housewives and the Braxtons and Love and Hip Hop and all that other stuff. Think about how many Black people would have a job based on that. Think of how much bigger the network would be and what that could be for Black people. But instead, the folks over at BET took the position that a lot of Black people are saying out there and said, no, we are not going to do this. And so what ended up happening is Love and Hip Hop then went on to VH1. And I love the folks over Love and Hip Hop, but if you look at the people that created Love and Hip Hop, it's going to be hard for you to find a Black face there.
Oh.
If you go and look at the people that created that are working on the Atlanta Housewives or Tony Braxton Family Values, it's going to be hard for you to find a Black face there. So that's what we got as Black people. We got the folks over at BET to be able to take a position to say, we're not going to allow this and we're not going to stand this. And you lost a ton of Black people jobs, and Black people are still watching The Real Housewives. They're still watching Love and Hip Hop, and they're still watching this. So like I said, at the end of the day, the idea is, if you want to be in this, if we want to be in the entertainment business, this is what the entertainment business is: posting entertainment or providing entertaining content. If you don't want us to be in it and you want us to say, look, Black people, you hold on to your values and morals and allow all the white folks to create whatever the hell content that they want with no accountability to us at all, then that's what you get. So that's the realities of it. But I think for the vast majority of people that are looking at this, they probably don't understand this. They probably haven't thought it through. They're just looking at something that they don't like, and they're saying, I wish that wasn't there now. Yeah. But I said, they're not really understanding the ramifications of what would happen if what they're saying would in fact happen. And so
that's a pretty good explanation.
No, so you're saying that they're looking at it at a micro and you're looking macro.
Yeah, it's like It's like if you look at President Obama and say, well, President Obama, you didn't do enough for Black people, well, whatever else. And President Obama's like, yes, but I could only do this much or whatever. Right? There's nuances to what it is that you're saying. And you have to look at like the goal, right? Like what was it that he was trying to do? What is it that the goal that we're trying to get to, right? And the path might go a little bit like this, and so when you're not on the right path that they're on, they don't like it, right? And then you get back on and they're like, wow, I'm glad you're here, right? It's a little bit messy. And so, when I hear stuff like that, I don't fight back. I don't call them haters. I don't call them, because these people really feel the way that they feel. But I have to stand up and do what I have to do, because I believe that we're both trying to get, Black folks to the same position right there. We're just doing it different ways.
No, I totally understand. I think they would be remiss if they don't at least understand that point of view. I know that they may still feel the way they feel, but I think that's all the time we got. That's all the time we were told we have with you. So we want to thank you so much, man. And
appreciate it.
Is there anything you want to say to the people, or anything you want them to check out, or besides Media Takeout?
Yeah, you can check out Media Takeout tomorrow. We got some really hot stories out there. And then I hope that I'm going to be continuing to go on the podcast talking about these ideas that I have. And maybe in 2-3 months, you guys are here and we'll read in the paper. You'll say, wow, look, that's that guy Freddie who's saying that you want to do this thing. Look, it's starting to happen,
Or maybe in 2 or 3 months, you'll be right back.
Yeah, I was going to say, we want to have you back, Freddie.
Hey, man, I got plenty of time now, right?
We got
more questions. Here's
the other part.
You are cousin Freddie now.
And we don't gossip, so we might need to just call you in once a month so you can just be like,
fill us in.
Because we don't. I'll be honest.
I got all the gossip.
I know. I hear the gossip, but I don't click on it. Like, I'm not gonna go click and read about Meg Thee Stallion and Tory.
I see you, but you know it. You know that it happened, though.
Yeah, I know. But
what happened?
If you give it to me in a video clip, I'm one of them. I'm not finna go. I feel like, I don't know. That's not manly to read about it. You can't read about another woman, but I can watch it. No, but what do y'all? You got any insight on that Meg and Tory? Did he shoot her, man?
I mean, who knows, right? Like, I don't want to put a charge on the brother, especially,
No, I hear you.
But at the same time, Megan's not denying it. Megan is basically acting like he did do it. You know what I mean?
Said a criminal offense happened against me.
Right, but it's interesting, right? Because there are some holes to the story that make you wonder what was going on, right? Because Megan, the initial report was that she was taken to the hospital with glass in her foot.
Yeah. Right.
Then it came out that he shot her in the foot.
Yeah.
Now, that's two totally different things. Like, glass in your foot is one thing. A bullet in your foot is something else. Like, you're not gonna mistake it. You know what I mean? You're not gonna be able to.
Two totally different wounds.
You're not gonna be able to go to the hospital with bullets in your thing, and you know what I mean. And the police are not gonna be over there like, what's up? What's going on? So there's a lot of stuff in that whole description that make me wonder that there's a lot more to it. I question whether, in fact, Tory, she even did get shot in her foot. I don't think that that's clear at all. So, maybe he shot at her, but I'm not sure that she got shot.
He hit the glass, he shot, broke the glass in her foot.
When we do find out what did happen, I think it's going to be a lot less, anti-Tory than it is now. Because right now it looks like the dude pulled out a gun and shot a woman, and that's not cool. And I think when we find out what happened, I think we're not gonna feel as the same way that we do about Tory. I think it's gonna be a lot more in his favor. Let me just say that.
Got it. Rapid fire questions. Kanye, is he really running for president?
No, I think Kanye is just, the wild thing about Kanye, the guy is clearly falling apart, right? Like, the way that people are covering him and asking it, is this guy running for president? Or they'll say, talking about his rants. Like, to me, listening to Kanye West is like listening to like that homeless crazy person. You know what I mean?
You might say something wise every 3 or 4 sentences.
And I'm not even saying this to like, because I literally at this point I actually feel sorry for him. He's literally lost his mind. He lost his mind, and he's saying stuff, and people are like, oh, getting angry. Like, if the homeless person says something about me, I'm not even gonna be angry. I'm not taking his stuff seriously.
Right.
I'm not asking him to elaborate on what he's saying. I'm just assuming
Yeah, so
the
how can a
person
crazy person
he's
draw
in a place he's in a very unhealthy place. So I don't know why we're even discussing anything that comes out of his mouth.
I get it.
Because I don't think
I get it. I think that's just the way he argues with Kim. He run in the bathroom, lock the door, and then start tweeting a whole bunch of like career damage and shit. Like,
I mean, I wish that were the case. I wish we could laugh at it. I wish we could like talk about it, or whatever. But I think that generally speaking, I don't know, how many of you have had people in your life that mentally have mental health issues. But these, especially if a doctor's intervened, these stories don't end well. And we can laugh about it all right now. We could talk about all this stuff, but we could be sitting here before 2020 is over talking about why didn't we step in? Why didn't we do anything? Because a tragedy happened with him. And I think that this is going right towards tragedy. I don't think that there's anything funny at all about this. I didn't even want to cover it, but we have to cover it because this is clearly heading towards tragedy. And not tragedy like divorce. I mean, tragedy like
real tragedy. Anything out of the bubble? The NBA bubble? Anybody flying it out, heard anything?
Yeah, we had a story of a woman, and she was going in and out of the bubble. Apparently, she'd been meeting a bunch of celebrities on there. We're still working on it. We're still trying to vet it.
No doubt. Take your time.
I was back. She's going in and out the bubble.
Yeah, the thoughts is in there. Don't think that.
Hey, you made him spit out his good. Hey, no. Well, Migos, they breaking up with 300.
Yeah, I mean, you always see this. From what I hear, that there's some degree of jealousy between Lil Baby, who's now really blowing up, and Migos. There's some belief that maybe some of the resources and stuff that the Migos was supposed to be getting is over to Lil Baby. But the contract the contract is airtight. They're not going anywhere. The folks over at QC are tight. You know what I mean? They're not thieves. You know what I mean? People trying to make them out to be like, these guys just came in there and stole a whole bunch of money or whatever else like that. That's not true. These guys are not thieves. These are legitimate business people. So the contracts and all the paperwork is so tight, Migos is not going anywhere. So I think right now it's like it's a lot of like issues. Maybe it's issues with money or jealousy or whatever. I think, in another couple of months, a lot of this stuff will be worked out.
Oh, all right. Well, thanks a lot, Fred. We're gonna we're gonna circle back and double check on some of these stories.
Cousin Fred. Hey,
yeah, man. Yeah, man. I should have more about those bubble thoughts by the time we get back, right?
Please do.
Please do.
We can lead with that.
You ever come to Chicago, man? You need to come sit down with us, man. If you ever, how often do you come travel? Well, probably not in the quarantine.
I mean, now never, right? But I mean, I would go back and forth to Atlanta, LA. So, and I'd be happy to come out to Chicago. I've been out there a bunch of times.
I hear Chicago and Atlanta, LA.
How many people does MTO have working for them? How big is your company? How many people?
We have 13 people on staff.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought y'all do a lot.
Not a lot for 13. Hey, you know what? We'll talk about that on the next pod.
We definitely have to bring you back.
What's that? Next month?
Yeah. We're gonna do the end of every month with Fred.
All right. That's good.
Name your own segment, man.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, man.
All right. It was great talking.
Man.
All right, guys.
See you.
All right, man.